On 1 and 2 and 3. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining the KS Hemp Consortium, Kansas Hemp Consortium. As you know, in collaboration with Wichita State University and the Small Business Development Center, we are very pleased to have a guest with us today. The Hemp Consortium is a group that is dedicated to the promotion and education, consulting, and servicing hemp producers, processors, and distributors. There's a lot of expertise in the center as well as with the consortium, and we're here to help you. Thank you for joining us. We are very, very glad to have with us Landon from Heartland Soil Services. He is the owner and operator of a very modern, very aggressive, very capable service that assists farmers of any kind in educating them through consultation and through very high-end techniques on how to produce better crops, how to be more efficient and effective in their production. They do soil analysis, which result also on fertility analysis at the same time. And his company is able to tell you what is that you need on your soil going forward, depending on your crop, depending on the time, moisture, so on and so forth. What is it that you need and where do you need it? They are, as I said, they are very cutting edge. They do use drones, they do airplanes, they have the software that goes along with do the analysis with these modern tools. It's definitely farming in the 21st century. So Landon is going to be answering some questions that the president of our hemp consortium is going to be presenting to him. And also that leads me into, Sarah Stevens. Sarah is the president of the KS Hemp Consortium. She is being a leader in the production of hemp since inception here in Kansas. She's very knowledgeable as well as well connected with all kinds of producers and processors. So Sarah is going to be talking to Landon, since they're both the experts, about specific things on how to generate a better hemp crop. So I'm going to let Sarah take over. And again, thank you on behalf of the Kansas Hemp Consortium, as well as Wichita State University Small Business Development Center. One, thanks to Pittsburgh State University, SBDC, where we have our communications and marketing expert, Mindy Lee, and appreciate her efforts helping us with the production of this Lunch and Learn. So thank you, Mindy. Sarah.
Thank you, Frank. I look forward to hearing from you, Landon, and always appreciate Mindy's help getting us working in the right direction. I, as Frank said, am with the Kansas Hemp Consortium. I'm also a CBD hemp grower and licensed researcher in the Kansas Department of Agriculture's hemp research program in 2019 and 2020. I have been growing a CBD variety, or actually 3 CBD varieties, and certainly watched that unfold in the state and have gotten to be a part of a hardworking group of people who are trying to advance that cause and see the potential for it. But definitely as part of the Kansas Hemp Consortium, understand the state's real ability to capture the fiber hemp market and to advance that in our state, and for it to be a viable crop for traditional row farming. And where CBD maybe isn't the greatest fit for that, but we're going to, as a state, transition to a crop that is going to really take us places as far as fiber hemp can turn into manufacturing opportunities and other economic growth for the state. So I'm excited to hear from Landon and how he has seen. Landon talks to farmers all day, every day, and he understands the tools that they're using and the processes that are working for them, the crops that are working for them. And if I'm right, Landon, to date, you haven't seen a lot of fiber hemp growing in the state. And if you want to just kind of tell us what you are seeing and what maybe success or failures you've seen from farmers focused on CBD crops and where you think we're headed.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Sarah and Frank. Thank you for the introduction. No, you're right. I haven't seen a whole lot of hemp being grown throughout the state for fiber or for CBD. I did see quite a few circles last year in Western Kansas that were trying to grow at a large scale for CBD. It was tough. The inputs were high. The product was low. They didn't get very good crop stand. I don't think that everybody had a complete understanding of the crop that they were growing. So it made the CBD side seem a little bit risky on the large scale side of
Yeah.
things. Maybe more of a greenhouse product than a full on acreage product like we assumed. But I do see a ton of opportunity in the hemp side, or the fiber side of hemp. The fiber side of hemp, I see it eliminates a lot of risk in the fact that it's harvested before we risk it becoming potentially too hot and having to destroy the crop. That's one of the biggest risks I think a lot of producers stood last year with the CBD. The nice thing about the fiber hemp is, in all reality, the practice of growing that product is very similar to any hay operation you've seen in Kansas. You need a drill, you need seed, you need fertilizer, you need a way to swath it down, dry it out, bale it. I mean, that's not uncommon for alfalfa or cane hay or anything of the sort. So I really could see the fiber taking off, especially with the help of the Kansas Hemp Consortium, putting a lot of the experts in place of that farmer. There's a lot of, obviously right now there's a lot of regulatory hoops to jump through. I think that's something that the consortium brings to the table that assists that farmer that they might not be able to necessarily navigate very easily by themselves. It's one of those deals that I could see this becoming a very, very commoditized crop moving forward, just due to the simplicity of the fiber side.
Yeah. I think a couple points you made there really, that the farmer's not wanting to take a risk on losing the crop, and also the way that it's kind of set up to where if you're growing a CBD, there's even potentially criminal charges and just so much at risk for something so unknown that if that's what you do for a living, if you're a farmer, it's just too high a price to pay for something that is kind of experimental at this point. So yeah, I would agree on the farmers and how it's just a better match to the traditional farming that they've been doing. And at the Hemp Consortium, we are trying to understand how maybe the regulations could be different for fiber hemp crops than it is for CBD hemp crops. But we have been assured at this point that it is not, that hemp is hemp, as the KDA told us. And whether you're growing a fiber crop or a CBD crop, it's going to at this point have the same regulations and the same requirements for paperwork and deadlines and all this timed testing of the crop. And all those are manageable and they are doable, but they require paying attention and staying on top of what your requirements are. It's different. It's a little more strenuous than a traditional crop. And it looks like those requirements are here to stay while it gets sorted out. And that's something that the Hemp Consortium has completed successfully and is happy to help people do, whether they're growing a fiber hemp crop or a CBD crop. Our next question, Landon, was what advice regarding soil and water needs would you offer to farmers interested in fiber hemp crops, and realizing it's early in the game to make those kind of predictions, but if you have general thoughts on advice for soil and water needs?
In all reality, Sarah, I look at the fiber hemp crop as just another crop. If every crop has different nutritional needs between alfalfa, corn, beans, milo, wheat, they've all got different nutritional needs, and similar to those, hemp does as well. So I think that from a soil standpoint, it's very important to understand what you have in your soil, what you have available, and what you need in your soil. The old modern way of just putting on a flat rate or just applying an NPK application because this is what the nutrient needs of a hemp plant are, that's too broad of a spectrum. With the soil samples and grid soil sampling for these fields and such a high value and high potential crop, that's going to allow us to identify, okay, maybe we don't need so much phosphorus or potassium, but maybe we might be lacking in boron, manganese, iron, copper, something else that might be a little bit more productive for that crop. So I think a soil sample really is a great way to establish a baseline for this crop. Another thing would be identifying different soil types and trying to trend them back with hybrids and varieties that have been tested. I know Kansas State University has put a lot of research through the Hemp Consortium into different hybrids and varieties across different soil structures. And with that being said, hybrid and variety choice is going to be very critical in determining what you plant and where you plant it. As far as water needs are concerned, I think that is something, that's where the hemp shines very well, is because it's not a high demand crop for water. That's going to allow a lot of these farmers on some of these dry land acres to really diversify their portfolio and open up a whole new book of worms, if you will, can of worms rather, to the opportunities around. You know, there was a lot of guys a couple of years ago that were growing sun hemp, and they were using sun hemp as a deep rooting crop that helps to bring a lot of those nutrients back to the surface, and you'd see a lot of nitrogen back in the soil that crop was able to deep root down and bring up to the surface. And then the subsequent crop after that, once they do a rotation, was far more beneficial than it might have been otherwise, because that product or that crop resurrected a lot of the nutrients that a traditional crop might not be able to reach.
Does the sun hemp have a use on its own, or it was planted just for that purpose?
It was primarily planted as a cover crop.
Okay.
Yep. And so that's been several years back, but you know, as far as that's concerned, I kind of always fall back on our motto at Heartland Soil Services, which is, unless you test, it's just a guess.
Yeah.
And when we're dealing with such a crop as hemp and something that has so much potential, guessing is out of the question at this point.
Yeah, that just won't work. And why would you think it would? There's a lot of unknowns as far as, like you said, the seed varieties that are going to be a good fit for Kansas, and maybe what's coming out of Canada is not. We've been looking at some seeds from Croatia that, you know, are similar in lateral alignment with Kansas, but there's going to be differences there that still could make it not a good fit. So we are going to try to test several varieties of fiber in a full stand this coming spring, so that we can really drill down on the right direction for that. And of course, paying attention to what K-State is finding out also. And I know you and I were out there a few weeks ago at the Pear Horticulture Center, and they were telling us about adding different levels of nitrogen and what was working and what was not. So keeping all that sort of research in hand and close to you, and falling back on it when you're looking at it, something Kansas Hemp Consortium can help. But mainly pointing people towards actual soil testing. And that's what you just are an expert at. And I appreciate the explanations that you brought to us so far. You hinted earlier, or touched on a commodity crop for hemp. Can you just, how would you see that coming to be? We know it's not publicly traded, it's not on the exchange, but how could that happen, and how could Kansas lead that?
Well, I think in all reality, the Kansas Hemp Consortium can really be the forward progress of that motion, and being able to bring all of these experts to the table. One of the biggest limiting factors I think we have right now is the lack of a processing facility that is nearby. Everything else, other than actually acquiring the proper seed, I think you guys have in place, to be honest with you. I mean, the rest of it is pretty straightforward. Once we get through the regulatory hoops, help that customer get through the regulatory hoops, run your soil analysis, determine what our nutrient needs are, determine, you know, seeding rates and seeding depth, and then have something in line that's not so far out of reach from a processing standpoint. I mean, I think that's the very beginning of a whole new world of opportunity for these producers.
Yeah, we're hearing, like, you know, definitely within 100 miles of the field in order to make it cost effective to transport and get there in these big bales. So yep, totally agree. And that's something we're definitely working on, and hope to have more to say about that soon. Frank, any final questions? You're on mute, Frank.
I think both of you have done a very good job in showing the picture of where we are, with fiber hemp and where we're going, just 2 points, or one is knowledge is power, and that is true on everything, and knowledge also lowers risk. The more knowledge, the more information you have, the more likely your decision making is going to be accurate and is going to bring the results that you're looking for. What the Hemp Consortium is trying to do, and the reason for these efforts and bringing folks like Landon here, is to increase the knowledge of the production, the producers base. Please feel free to reach out to both Landon or the Hemp Consortium. They're just do a search for heartlandsoilservices.com, and you will be able to reach out to Landon. Sarah, what's the best way to reach the consortium? You want to put your number out there or send them to the website?
Yeah, kshempconsortium.com. And we have a replay of a video that we did, a conference, about 3 hours worth of content related to hemp from several, when was that? A couple months back, I think, in September.
Well, it was, yeah, it was late. No, early October, I think, or late September. Yeah. And the other thing is, stay tuned and sign up for a newsletter, for updates from the Hemp Consortium, because we're going to be having, as we are learning more, we're going to transfer this knowledge to you folks through situations like this, like Lunch and Learn, other virtual conferences, and the like. So stay in touch with the SBDC, with Wichita State SBDC. Stay in touch with the Hemp Consortium, as well as Heartland Soil Services, because they are also a huge resource in order to make your efforts effective and efficient, and therefore profitable. Like Landon says, if you don't test, it's just a guess. And it's a play on words, but it's a very real one. So thank you again for joining us, and stay tuned, because there's going to be a lot more coming your way via these efforts, these lunch and learn, as well as other short workshops or conferences. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Mindy. Thanks, Landon.
Thank you guys very much. Have a great day.
Yeah.
You all.
Okay.